Good morning, all. It's 11 o'clock and we will get started. My name is Larry Jewell from the Edmonton Pride Seniors Group, and I thank you all for attending our weekly Aging with Pride discussion group for 2SL GBTQ plus seniors and allies. And thank you to our partners, SAGE and the Pride Center of Edmonton. Before I introduce our speaker, I must acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respect the history, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our lives. A couple of housekeeping items. Firstly, I must let you know that this session will be recorded for future use on our YouTube channel. If you don't wish your image to be recorded, please close the video feed. I will indicate at the moment and remind you when we get to the Q&A that Brendan is not able to make specific recommendations about businesses and service. He can answer and will answer, I'm sure, general questions, but he can't make recommendations for a specific fire extinguisher or something of that order. The other thing is, if you hear, if you get confidential, personal information, anything you hear here should stay here if it's of a personal nature. Thank you very much, Brendan, for coming. Brendan Brown is a fire prevention officer and educator with the City of Edmonton Fire Rescue Service. He's a newcomer to Edmonton, having been here for 8 months. So welcome. Well, and we're glad you're making us part of your first year. Before that, he was in the Canadian Armed Forces as a firefighter for 7 years. He grew up in Ontario. He says next to a beautiful lakeside community. And one of my questions may be, what exactly what community was that? But we'll worry about that later. Brendan is married, has 2 beautiful, energetic kids, and a wife who he says keeps him busy and moving on his days off. His goal in this talk and in the future is to ensure that everyone in Edmonton knows about fire safety and can feel comfortable dealing with an emergency within their home. And with that, I thank you again, and we'll turn the discussion over to you, Brendan.
Thanks for the great introduction. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brendan. I'm a fire prevention officer with the City of Edmonton, as Larry just said. So today we're going to be talking about fire safety for independent living. If you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask me or put your hand up so I can get to those questions. I know sometimes if a question sits on your mind, you kind of erase the rest of the conversation. So it's better just to ask the questions right away and then instead of waiting on it. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen here for a presentation. And then if anyone wants to give me the thumbs up if they can see it, perfect. Let me just go back to it. All right, so once again, my name is Brendan, and I'm with Edmonton Fire Rescue. So in the event of emergency and everyone calls 911, it's very important to realize that the help is being dispatched, but they'll go through certain questions that they'll ask you just in case. So our dispatch is either broken down into police, fire, or ambulance. So when you first call, make sure you make reference to which one you're looking for. If, say, you call and you're looking for an ambulance, there's a good chance that the fire truck will also show up because ambulances are stretched so thin these days that all our fire trucks are actually trained to be medical first responders. So they'll most likely be arrived on scene first and start any sort of help that you guys need. And then the ambulance most likely will show up after. This may change dependent on how busy the fire department is and how slow the ambulance is. So the biggest thing to remember is when calling 911 is to try to stay calm. So what I always tell people is always take a big deep breath before you make that phone call, before you start talking, because the last thing you want to do is start blurting out a whole bunch of really important information right off the top, and then dispatch misses it, and then they start asking you questions again, and then it kind of gets frustrating going back and forth. So make sure you take your time, take a deep breath, and try to stay calm and just answer the questions and get to help there as fast as you guys can. So when you call 911, the dispatcher is going to ask you if it's a police, fire, or ambulance, and they'll transfer your call accordingly. So each department has their own dispatch station. So don't be surprised if they're like, okay, we're transferring you to police or we're transferring you to EMS. It's a really quick transfer and you'll be picked up right away. So there's nothing to be worried about there if they just transfer you. It all goes through it all goes through the certain location that you guys are looking for. So the biggest thing that I like to spread or I like to let people know is when you do call 911, make sure that you have your address somewhere that's easy to find. So we recommend that people put it onto their fridge. So in case the situation is like you have grandkids come over or your friends come over and they don't know your address, they can easily go to the fridge and find your address and be able to tell 911 if you're the person that's injured or needs help. This just makes it so you're not searching and dispatch isn't trying to search your phone to make sure to try to track you for where you are. It's a quick and easy way, and it's right on your fridge, ready to go. So this is the reality of fire. The average home back in the day takes about 30 minutes to burn to a full flashover. The new construction these days, you're looking closer to 5 minutes. So you now have 5 minutes to get out. If you start getting into more electric vehicles, if any of you guys drive electric scooters or electric bikes, that can actually reduce the time down to probably about 2 minutes. So make sure that when you have any of those devices, you're able to get out of your house because 2 minutes goes by really fast. So we're probably trying to watch this video. Hopefully it works. We'll give it a shot.
There's no volume coming through, should there be?
There should be. I guess it's not coming through. I'll kind of direct it. So right now they lit a fire. This is going to be a new home, so they're talking about how fast the fire is going to transition from just starting on the couch to actually going over, setting off the smoke detectors and letting people get out. So you guys will see how fast materials burn within your house now. So right then and there, the smoke alert detector went off in 50 seconds. The, the fire they were talking about back in the day happened, and a person lost their life because they didn't have smoke detectors within their house. So it's saying that if you install smoke detectors, they go off and they give you a better chance. I'll tell you guys the stop when it actually lets you guys know when the occupants found out there was a fire because the smoke detectors didn't go off. So at this time, the smoke detector in the second floor went off and actually alerted the family to get out. So you just lost 40 seconds. The fire is now building pretty heavy, and this is the front door for people to get out. So as you can start to see, layers of smoke within the main room. So at this point, the family left the house and they left the door open, which started to feed the fire, and the fire got too intense. At this point, the temperature is so hot that no one could survive this. It's over 700 degrees. So right there, it's talking about how no one was able to survive the conditions because the fire got too hot, too fast, and they weren't able to actually escape the house. But if they had the smoke detector on their ground floor, they were able to get out in a shorter period of time. So we do recommend that everybody within their household test their smoke detectors. So the easiest way to test your smoke detectors is to use a push broom. So there'll be a button on your smoke detector that you can push up with the push broom, and now you'll hear one beep, which will let you know that the batteries are good, and then you'll hear it go into full alarm. So you keep holding your push broom up to it, and then you'll hear it go into full alarm, and then as soon as you take your broom away, it should stop. We want to let people know that ladders probably aren't the best idea, or standing on chairs, as it gets pretty dangerous and it's really wobbly. And if you're the only one up there, you don't want to be the one to fall and then have no one to call 911, or if you get injured, that's the last thing we want. So using a push broom would probably be the best option for anybody. So on the smoke detector, most of the time you'll see they'll be battery operated, and then they're also interconnected. So if you live in a household, they have to be interconnected through all the different floors. So if you pull it down, you'll see little wires behind it. That means that your detector is interconnected and it's connected to electrical power. Your batteries can still run dry because, say at night you guys lose power, it'll go back to backup power. So you might start hearing little chirps from your detector. That means that the detector is low on batteries, and then it'll time to replace the detector. Sorry, time to replace the batteries, not the detector. The detector itself lasts for 10 years. So after 10 years, you want to make sure that you replace your detector, and we'll see you in the next slide. They only last 10 years, so give them a rest, because you want to retire your smoke alarms like we all hope to do in the future, you guys are doing right now. And then, so you want to make sure that after 10 years, they need to be replaced because the components inside start to break down and they don't work as well. So at that point, write on your detector, or you'll see a little sticker on your detector. They'll say, this is the date of the detector. So just make note in like a personal calendar, 10 years from now, we want to replace them. Or if you want to write it on a piece of tape on the detector, 10 years from now, it needs to be replaced. This just makes sure everybody in your household knows and has an idea. I'm sure everybody's seen a carbon monoxide alarm in their house. Those are normally located on the floor, but the new technology has actually found out that carbon monoxide mixes in with all kinds of air. So actually, most carbon monoxides are now made with the smoke detector. So it's a 2-in-1 system. So they can be located on the ceiling and they'll still activate. So back in the day, it was believed that carbon monoxide sat low on the ground because it was heavier in air. With new technology, we're actually able to find out that carbon monoxide mixes with air, so it's everywhere in the house, not just on the ground floor. So we want to also make sure that even though everyone recommends them just in the basement or around your furnaces, gas fireplaces, kitchens, and stoves, make sure you have one upstairs in your sleeping units or outside your sleeping units, because that's going to be the place that you want to be alerted to. So even though downstairs might have it, we also want to make sure that upstairs, in case something broken, like one of your pipes upstairs, that you guys got alerted, and then it's not going to take all that time to get all the way down to the basement where the one detector might be. So CO2 normally comes from the furnace, hot water heater, gas fireplaces. So if you see any of these devices in your house, like a stove, make sure that you do have a CO detector, because it is silent. It's tasteless, odorless, so you wouldn't actually notice it in your house until it's too late. So we always want to make sure that people realize that you want to be able to give the best option for survival. So having these 2 different detectors is going to make sure that you have that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is planning your escape out of your house. The best way I can describe this is if I was to tell you to close your eyes right now, and I was to say you're in your bathroom or you're in your bedroom, how would you get out of that room? Most people automatically are going to close their eyes. They could be like, I'm going to go through the door of my bedroom. But now I'm going to throw a curveball. What if that door is blocked or there's a fire on the other side? Where are you going to go? It takes people about 5 to 10 seconds to realize the next exit unless they have already had it planned out. So the more you practice and plan your exits, the easier it'll just come to you. So you're not spending that 5 to 10 seconds thinking about how I'm going to get out, where I'm going to get out, because you've already planned your exit and where and what you need to do and how to get out. So it's just as important as having a working smoke alarm. Your fire escape plan is going to make sure that you know what to do, where to go, and how to get out of all your rooms. It's even good if you have grandkids that come over, you can talk about it with them in case that they're in a separate room from you. They know how to get out. Anybody that comes in your house, they'll take a quick look around and be like, yeah, if something was to happen, go out this door, or we'll have to go out the window, close this door. Just make sure they're always planning for our escapes because fire, as we saw from the video, it moves really fast and it doesn't give us enough time to actually stop, think about what we're doing there. We have to do it right away and be able to get out because safety is the number one priority that we want to push for all residents. And having a home escape plan is probably one of the best things that anybody can do. So closing the door behind you, it creates that barrier for the smoke. It creates the barrier for the fire. So none of your stuff gets damaged in your room. But it also, when you leave a door open, it adds more oxygen to that fire, which then creates the fire, makes it, I guess, more intense because it's feeding the fire. So the more you feed a fire, the more it's going to grow, the more it's going to expand, the more it's going to move to the next room. So compartmentalizing those rooms and closing the doors behind you stops that fire from spreading to each individual rooms. So then the fire becomes a ventilation controlled fire, and then it'll end up dying out unless oxygen's added to that. So we always want to tell people that when you leave the house, don't leave the door open. Make sure it's closed so that you're not adding to the fire and creating a better chance for the fire to destroy your house. You're making the fire department have an easier job, hopefully, and then they'll be able to come in and save a lot of your equipment and personal belongings. This is going to be more talking about the residents that live within apartment buildings and condominiums. You'll see a lot of these safety devices within any of the stairwells, around the hallways. So the first one's an exit sign. So anytime you exit the suite, just take a quick look there. You should always have out your front door 2 ways to get out. So you'll either be able to go left or right. And then if you follow those exit signs, they should direct you to where the best point of exit is and to your muster point. You might see these little fire extinguishers hanging around. We never recommend that. If you have to take the fire extinguisher, turn around, and you have to stop and think, is this fire extinguisher is going to put out this fire? It's probably not going to put out that fire. If you can confidently say, while holding that fire extinguisher, I can put out the fire, then go ahead and use it. But if you ever have any doubt that the fire extinguisher is too small or the fire is too big, don't put yourself in a risk and try to put out that fire. It's better to get out and let the fire department come in because they have a lot of hoses that they'll be able to put a lot more water on compared to that little tiny fire extinguisher. When you are exiting your suite, there'll be these little red boxes. They're pull stations. So what they do is they send a notification to the main fire alarm panel that sets off the bells throughout the whole building so everybody becomes alerted. Not just you and not just you going down the hall saying fire, fire, fire. It actually alerts everybody to the building to get out because we want to create the best chance for survival for everybody, not just individual suites and floors. When we do exit, we never want to use the elevators. The elevators should be used as a last-ditch effort by the fire department because if you're in if you're in the Stantec Towers downtown, that's 66 floors. It's not a good chance that the fire department's going to be walking up all 66 floors. So you never want to be crowding the elevator because the elevators automatically get a drop to the ground floor. So if you're trying to call the elevator, waiting for the elevator to come, it's not going to come for you. All elevators are now designed that they should drop to the ground floor for fire department use only, and not for occupants to get out of the building. They should always go to the stairwells because stairwells are safe areas where they're double layered, and there's less of a chance that a fire can get through them because there's so much protection for a stairwell compared to your suite within an area. So if you move you to a stairwell, the fire department will be able to come up and get you from that stairwell if you're just hanging out on the stairs or you just can't walk down the stairs. As long as you're within the stairwell, that's the best spot for you, and the fire department will come get you. You never want to bring walkers into the stairs because now you're just creating a tripping hazard for everyone exiting out the building. So try to leave those at your suite or within the hallway and never in the stairwell because, as some of us might know, it's very tight in those stairwells, and that's the last thing that you want to be tripping on because now you just created another hazard. We want to make sure that we have a preparedness kit. So I know some of you probably have been on vacation where you have a backpack where you keep your passports, your wallets, any kind of important information. This is another good thing to have because most likely if a fire happened in your suite, you're not going to get it back in there within that day. Insurance is probably going to have to come. It's probably going to have to be cleaned out from all the smoke and damage. So we want to make sure that we have our own preparedness kit so that if we do have to relocate to a different building or to like a hotel for the night, that you guys have all your stuff ready to go and you're not going to be scrambling to call pharmacies, places for money like the banks and stuff like that. Everything's ready to go so you guys can just get out and leave. So we're going to talk about oxygen safety. So the biggest thing whenever using oxygen is you never want to smoke with it. Oxygen is very flammable, and even like a light from a cigarette can cause the oxygen in the tubes to create spontaneous combustion, and it'll actually burn your face. So we've been to some of these calls where people will light up a cigarette and think it's okay because it's just a tube in their mouth or a tube in their nose. But with the air flowing into it, it's complete oxygen. There's no air. So it's 100% flammable. And as soon as you add that spark, it causes a huge fireball and it causes 3rd-degree burns. And if you're really unlucky, it can cause other parts of your body to, I guess, burn or kind of be taken off. So next we're going to be talking about cooking with care. So the number one rule is to stay with your stove when cooking. Never go back to the TV and sit on the couch and be like, oh yeah, it's okay. I'll figure out when the water's boiling, or this is a really good Survivor episode and I really got to get back to it. We always want to make sure you're staying with your pots. So if a fire does start, it gives you guys the best chance to be able to put it out. So this is how we're going to be putting out a fire. You want to use the pot lid as a shield, because if you're coming in with the pot lid, you're going to be pushing those flames away from you. So you're going to slide the pot lid onto the fire. It's going to push any of the flames away so you're not burning your arms, singeing your hair, anything like that. And then it's going to smother that fire. After that's done, turn off the burner and then just leave the pot lid, or just leave the pot there. The fact that the pot caught on fire, it probably damaged some of the components of the pot and it made it really unsafe and unstable to move. So the best thing is just to leave it there, go finish your TV episode, and if it got really bad, call 911. If you do at some point catch on fire, which we hope that never happens to anybody, we always have to make sure that we always go over the same steps of stop, drop, and roll. It's a proven method that everyone should know how to do, and it's the best way to put out fires that's on your clothes. So you want to be able to get to the floor as safely as possible, lie down, and then just roll. If the fire is still not out, just keep rolling. don't get up, start running around, because once again, we're adding fuel to that fire, and then we can create the fire to get bigger. And then that's the last thing we want, because it goes by fast and then it hurts. So this video is about water on a grease fire. So we're gonna play it. This happens when people throw water onto a grease fire thinking that.
Okay, go ahead.
So that is just a cup of water going onto a really small amount of grease that's on a pot. So I'll play it again just so everyone understands the fact that throwing water onto a fire, it causes it to splash and go everywhere and creates a huge fireball. So whoever thought, if anyone ever tells you, yeah, it's a great idea, just throw water onto the grease, it's not. And you can definitely show them this video and everyone will be amazed, because I was amazed when I first saw it. This is some of the damage that you guys might have seen in this for the city, or some of the grease fires that we've responded to from the city. So these are people just throwing basic cups of water onto their grease. So I don't know about you, but that's a lot of damage, and I don't think I could handle that in my house. So hopefully this never happens to any of you guys. Now that we all know how to actually put out a fire, grease fire on the kitchen. So next we're going to talk about smoking safety. 2 years ago, this was probably one of the biggest fire hazards within the city. We've now dropped it down to about, I think it's a tenth of our calls now, but we still want to keep getting it lower, because smoking safety is 100% preventable as long as everybody knows how to actually properly extinguish the smoking materials. So for anybody, you always want to be able to put it out into an ashtray, and then with that ashtray, or when you go to actually throw it into the garbage, just make sure you water it down, just so, because a lot of the embers are still ignited within there, even though you think that you might have put it out, there still might be embers, and putting the water on it is to completely extinguish it, and then you can throw it into your garbage cans. You never want to smoke when you're sleeping, because if you happen to fall asleep, that cigarette's going to continue to burn and it's going to light your bed on fire. Or you never want to throw it out the window when you're driving your car, because there's a lot of dry grass, especially in the upcoming seasons. It's going to start a lot of grass fires, and then hopefully it doesn't spread. Hopefully it doesn't spread to any forest, any houses in the neighborhood. So this is a video or a photo of a fire that we went to within a duplex, an apartment duplex, where someone was smoking in their bedroom. It happened to light some of the contents on fire, and this is the damage that one cigarette caused to one apartment building. So once again, smoking fires are 100% preventable as long as people take proper care in putting them out, and then make sure that it's completely out before throwing any of it into the garbage. Next, we're going to talk about the home hazards. So I don't know if some of you guys have ever walked into a laundromat where you walk in and it feels like you're in Mexico with all the humidity. If you ever feel that walking into your laundry room or laundry room that you go to, that's because the clothes dryers are clogged and they're not actually venting to the outside. So that's a good indication that all your lines need to be cleaned out by a company. When this does happen, it creates a lot of debris within the dryer. So as soon as it starts to heat up that debris, it'll actually cause your dryers to catch on fire. And now, if you don't have any detectors down in your basement or your laundry room, you just started a laundry fire, and then hopefully one of your detectors picks up. So once again, we want to make sure that we catch these things as early as possible, and then we're trying to do as much preventable, I guess, ideas or things to make sure that we are actually making it safer for everybody, so that everybody knows that these home hazards are very preventable. Sorry, we're going to talk about electrical safety. So if you look at the middle photo, that is an overloaded plug. You'll see a lot of this happening around Christmas time where everyone tries to plug in their Christmas tree, their Christmas lights, the decorations that go on the tables. It's causing too much power to come out of any of those sockets. When that starts to happen, it starts to overload the circuits and they start to burn. When that happens, it goes down and it starts a fire within the wall, and that'll spread up a fire inside your wall, and you'll have no idea what's happening until it'll start to come out, and you'll start to see the paint on the wall will start to peel, and that'll be the first indication that it was an electrical fire. You also want to make sure that you're using proper extension cords. So if you look at the photo on the left, that is a frayed extension cord. It's normally due to people bending the extension cords, pulling it out from the socket from not the actual plug that goes in, but from the line, or people even just running over it, stepping over it. If these extension cords touch each other, or the wires touch each other, they'll start a little spark. And if it runs underneath a carpet, you just started a fire within your living room that you weren't planning for. And it's once again 100% preventable as long as we take care of the proper, as long as we do the proper methods to actually make this preventable. So none of these are a good option. For candle safety, I know a lot of people, me including myself, we have candles in our house. We want to make sure that we keep a 1 meter buffer around all things that are flammable, such as the couches, the drapes, any kind of books that are sitting on the table. And you want to be able to put that candle in like a glass jar, anything that's going to stop that flame from moving around and touching any of those combustible materials. You also never want to leave the room once you have lit a candle, because if something happens, like an animal knocks it over or it falls and if the candle melts and it just becomes unbalanced, the last thing you want to do is if for rolling onto your couch or roll into something flammable and then start a fire within that room where we have no idea that it's actually there. So when you go to blow it out, make sure that you come in from the side, or you never want to blow it out with too much pressure, because then you'll actually be blowing a whole bunch of hot wax everywhere. And that could never be a good idea. And during power outages, we want to make sure that we want to use flashlights and never candles. In case we trip and fall, we can drop that candle onto something flammable. So always use something safer like a flashlight or a cell phone. So we already talked about the clothes dryers. We want to make sure that we clean out the vents and then nothing gets built up, and then we clean out the hoses. So once again, a good tidbit is if it feels like humid and you're walking into Mexico, it's probably a good time to clean out your dryer vents. Within your basement, we want to make sure that there's at least a 1 meter clearance around all your gas burning appliances. Your gas burning appliances, they'll give off a lot of heat when they're heating up or when they're heating your house, and that can slowly deteriorate some of the boxes that you guys might have piled around there. And over time, that material will actually start to char, and then at one point it'll just start go on fire. So we want to make sure that we have the 1 meter buffer around all appliances, just so it's safer for the family. If you guys do ever come into a chance to use fire extinguishers, they work really great, but as long as we use them properly. So the first time, you want to take a time to actually read your fire extinguishers. On the tag, they'll actually explain how to use them, how to pull out the pin, how to safely approach a fire, and what fire they can actually be used for. So down at the bottom of the sticker, you'll see a trash can, gasoline, and electrical. So you never want to use a fire extinguisher that's not rated for what you're going to be fighting. So if you're fighting a grease fire or something like that, you're not going to be wanting to use an ABC. It's going to be more of a class K for kitchen. The next thing you want to look at is the gauge on top. So you always want to make sure that it's in the green. So if it's in the green, it's a go. If it's in the red, probably not a good idea to use it because there's probably no pressure within inside of it, or it's already been used and it's just it's ready to be recharged. So we always use an acronym. It's called PASS. So you're going to pull the pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the fire. So you're going to squeeze the lever and sweep from side to side. This is going to eliminate and coat the fire and eliminate the oxygen. So it actually puts the fire out. So this is my presentation. Hopefully you guys all had a chance to learn something. I'm going to open up for questions and answers, things that you guys might have seen around your household, things that you guys need help with, or just basic questions you guys that hopefully I can answer to make sure everyone's on the same page with fire safety. Okay, so I should be back now with just my background screen.
Good. Thank you so much. Eric, you have a question.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. How fast a fire spreads is truly terrifying. That's a very, very good lesson. I've got basically two questions, and one is that it's been years since I think it's been 20 or 25 years since I smoked, but I always used to take the ashtray and empty it into the toilet and flush the toilet. And I don't know whether ecologically that's still a good maneuver, but I was always nervous whenever I saw anybody emptying an ashtray into a trash can. I just thought,
yeah,
into water is that still a sound principle?
As long as you wet down the ashtray or the materials within the ashtray, then putting it into the garbage can's an option. Putting it into the toilet, once again, not the best environmentally friendly option, but it is an option that is better than just dumping the ashtray bucket into the garbage can.
Okay.
So those are the two best things, is to always put water on it before you dump it in, and then either put it in the toilet or outside like a planter pot where there's no vegetation and there's rocks or dirt around there as well.
Yeah, and that was sorry. So I guess the best process there is not to smoke, but
yeah.
The other, because I had heard, that was the other thing that I had heard, a couple of fires in Millwoods a couple of years ago where people were putting out the cigarette butt into a planter out on the deck, and that had caused the fire. And so that's, I just, again, cigarettes can be terrifying, but
Yeah.
your comments about trying to put a cigarette butt out in a planter.
So the planters that we're most likely talking about are ones that don't actually have any vegetation in them. So there's nothing that can like start to burn underneath. If there's like sand within that, or like a tin or old coffee can, those are kind of the planters that we recommend, because there is nothing that can burn within sand, and then it'll let the fire actually burn out and then go out. You never want to put a cigarette out in a planter where there's any vegetation where it can cause a fire. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you.
Microwaves. Can you talk at all about the hazards associated with microwaves? Because that's something we've encountered here.
So the microwave's the best safety practice is that you never want to put any sort of metal within microwaves. It causes a sparking from all the radio waves. It causes the metal to actually spark, and it'll cause the microwave to vent out the side, which then causes the whole kitchen to catch on fire. So we never want to put any sort of metal within microwaves. That includes tin foil. You never want to overcook things so we get this a lot. We'll respond to popcorn calls because people put it in for 30 minutes thinking that their popcorns can become awesome. It's definitely not. That's why they have popcorn buttons. So you always want to make sure that you're monitoring how the heat that's coming off your material that you're cooking inside, and you never want to overcook it, because then it'll start to burn inside, and as soon as you open up that microwave, you're adding fuel to that fire, and then that's going to start coming out, and a lot of people panic and leave that door, and it's going to start working its way up your walls and stuff like that. So if you guys do encounter an electrical fire within the microwave, it's best just to call 911, because what they'll do is they'll come in, they'll remove the microwave and take it outside to eliminate any hazard within the building.
Yes, we encountered a microwave. It caused fire here, which ended up with 2 floors of the building and 6 or 8 apartments uninhabitable.
Yeah, it happens a lot more than what people kind of realize within the city. We respond to a lot of fires due to cooking, and so just make sure that we're using the proper materials inside the microwave, and that we actually monitor it so we're not leaving it in there for 30 minutes trying to cook a bag of popcorn.
Good. Jan?
That was pretty impressive presentation, Brendan. I've learned lots, and I have 2 questions if there's time for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
My first question is, where would you recommend keeping the emergency preparedness kit?
So we always recommend keeping it by the front door. So if you guys have a hallway closet, somewhere in there is probably the best option. You never want to keep it underneath your bed or a place where you think you might have left it, because now you're searching for it. You always want to make sure that it's in a spot that everyone knows about. So even if you don't grab it and someone else lives with you, they can grab it and head out. So we always want to try to direct people to the path of exit. And if that's at the front door or close to the front door, then that's where we want to keep it so we can directly go to it, grab it, and then get it.
That's interesting. I thought by my bed might be the best place, but especially if the front door was on fire, but okay, front door it is. Is there time for a second question?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, my bedroom is on the 4th floor, and you had mentioned that you need 2 exits, and I don't have that. I mean, if you call a window, with a pretty large drop, an exit, is there a way to mitigate that as being an issue to go down 4 stories?
So the way buildings are designed is as soon as you exit your suite, you should be able to look left and right, and there should be a pathway to go out either both stairwells. So we never recommend people go onto their balconies, especially if the fire department's ladder trucks, if they're not able to reach your balconies. There's if you're completely immobile, there's also another option of creating a fire safety shelter in place. So it'd be keeping all doors shut, putting a wet towel underneath the base of your door so that it stops any smoke from coming in. So if you can't exit your suite, that'd be the best option for anybody. So if there is a fire in front of your door, you want to make sure that that barrier is set up in place, because the fire departments, the technology we use now is pretty advanced. So we're actually be able to pinpoint exactly where that fire is in most buildings. And they go to that fire floor right away to put the fire out to stop the danger. And then they'll evacuate people as need be that are closest to the area. So we get this a lot, where a lot of people are concerned about that they only have the one exit out the front door. So if you do encounter that, just shelter in place and make sure you do those safety precautions to create a better barrier between you and the fire for best chance survival.
Would you get in the bathtub full of water?
I would rather choose the balcony if you had a balcony. The bathtub, it kind of shelters you into one certain area. So if it does start to spread, you never want to be putting yourself in a room that doesn't have any windows, where you could have a chance of escape, because then the fire department's going to end up cutting through that wall. And it's a really scary sign when you see someone's chainsaw come through the wall. So
Thank you.
no problem.
Other questions from anyone? Guy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I always wonder about how our cat will be if there was a fire. And I was just wondering if you understand cat psychology, and are you good at rescuing them? Like,
I have a cat, and to be honest, anytime we try to go on vacation, it's always a mission trying to get her in the crate. So a fire is definitely no different than this. Normally cats, they'll go to their the place that they find safest. So if you do tell the fire department that's arriving on scene, I do have a cat. She always hangs out in this area when I go trying to bring her on vacation and stuff like that. That'll probably be one of the places that they're going to check, because that's most likely where she'll go. They'll they'll be able to grab her as humanely as possible and bring her out to you. Another recommendation that we sometimes see, it's not the best recommendation, I can tell you, but we hear a lot of people trying to leave their balcony doors open or their patio doors. So if you get out, the animal will hopefully run out the back door. We see a lot of this with people with dogs. We don't recommend this because it does feed the fire and it could spread really quickly through your house. So if you do know exactly where your animal is kept and where it normally hides, that's the best thing to do is just tell the fire department, hey, my cat normally hides out in this room underneath this bed. Can you please go see if she's there or there? I don't want to recommend that anybody goes and starts searching for their animals, because as we saw from that video, 2.5 minutes goes by really quickly, and if it already takes 50 seconds for your detectors to get off and go off and alert you, you don't want to be spending a minute and a half searching underneath the bed, in the closet for an animal. Let the department know, because they'll be able to go in with proper equipment and breathing protection, and they'll be able to search there for 30 minutes compared to your minute and a half.
Joan, did you have a
Any
question?
other questions? If not, Joan, you have a question?
Oh, I was just wondering about new fire codes and fire retardant material. Have you noticed that, building materials are kind of coded already, or is that something you have to search for if you're going to build or do renovations? Like, do you actually have to go looking for fire retardant material?
You would. So the best fire retardant that we know about is drywall. So drywall is actually made up of 60% water. So that's why a lot of the houses are built with a fire safety wall. If you're adjoining to another building, there'll be a double layer of drywall. If you look at any of the new construction around, you'll see on the outside it'll be like a blue or green colored
Right.
sheeting that goes on the side. That's also fire rated. It's very expensive to build with, but those are requirements in the fire code for building, for any new building being put up within a subdivision. If you do go searching out for things, there's definitely ratings that you're going to be looking for, like heat resistant ratings that you'll be able to find on any sort of drywall that you're looking for. And there's some of the wood that's actually been infused with this rating. It does cost more, but it can be a benefit, especially if you're using it for exposed ceilings, exposed beams, and stuff like that.
And what about the use of sprinklers? Do you recommend sprinklers being put in new? Is that a good?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We-
okay.
Sprinklers are 100% a life safety tool, and we recommend that everybody that has the chance to install sprinklers into their personal dwellings or apartment buildings installs them. You can see the life safety capabilities of them as a sprinkler system will control the fire in that one room, and it won't allow it to spread to another room. So that right there is saying that you now have a chance to be able to save everybody within the building and not just a surround and drown kind of situation. So we recommend that everybody that has the chance have sprinkler systems.
Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, just one more question about kitchen fires and kitchen safety.
Yep.
I've had every 5 years I replace the fire extinguisher in my kitchen, and fortunately I've never had to use it. But if there is a grease fire, in a frying pan, would you suggest trying to cover it with the lid first before you use the extinguisher, or hit it with the extinguisher directly?
For me, I would cover it first. I don't know if anyone's ever seen a fire extinguisher go off, especially a dry chemical one like an ABC, but it creates a really big mess. And it's if you don't have any airflow within that room, it's actually pretty toxic to your lungs. So if it gets in there. So for me, I would rather use a pot lid or a pan to put on that, I guess, pot or pan. and then to put out the fire compared to using an extinguisher, just due to the amount of material that it will leave behind and the cleanup that will be required.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Unless someone else had a question, I have another question. I live on the 19th floor, a building that's in an apartment that's very close to the stairwell, I will add. But what things other than the stairwell would be available for someone who lives in a high rise, very high?
So if you're caught in a situation where you have to walk down 90 floors, the fire department, when they come in to do the initial attack, there's a book that should be labeled on every apartment building. It's called the fire safety plan.
Yeah.
So it'll list all the residents that are unable to, or they need assistance with evacuating. And so if they come across that plan and they know that you're in immediate danger to life and health, they'll bring the elevator up to you and they'll probably evacuate you that way. So the best option is for yourself to self-evacuate out the stairs. But if you are someone that does need additional support, then the fire department will come up to help evacuate through the elevator. But it's a tough call for like areas that high, because they might also ask you to shelter in place.
May I ask, sort of related to this, are there regulations, additional regulations for seniors residents that take account of impaired mobility and so on, or are they regarded simply as the same as other multi-tenant buildings?
Yeah, the biggest thing that you'll see difference between a senior's residence and a normal apartment is now all senior residents, new builds have to be sprinklered. So that'll be the big improvement, just due to the fires that happened in Quebec. So that is a huge benefit, because once again, it's going to stop the spread of fire and create a better chance for survivability. For additional, I guess, requirements for seniors in care homes, there has to be certain longer fire separations between each individual suite compared to certain apartments. And it might also be made with a different material, like a non-combustible, such as the concrete, or like a triple layer drywall or a double layer drywall, where you have that better separation to stop the fire from spreading, to give you that 2-hour rating compared to a regular apartment, which might only have a 45-minute rating from a suite.
Thank you, Brendan. Jan, I'll give you the last question.
Brendan, are there any resources available through fire rescue to come out and help a person like me develop an escape plan?
Absolutely. So if we have a great public education department that's all this that can be found online for the city of Edmonton. So if you just type in the City of Edmonton Fire Rescue Department, they'll be able to direct you. There's a great drop-down list. And if you go to public safety and then inspections, all the information about creating a fire safety plan, there's a great walkthrough guide book for this. Along, if you need additional resources, you can reach out to the public safety branch and they'll be able to give you a call, walk you through it. And if it's a big complex, they'll most likely be able to come out and actually do a test drill with you to see how well your safety plan matches up in case of an emergency. So we do this a lot with seniors residents. The building management would create a fire safety plan for their residents, and we go out there and we test it just to make sure everybody kind of knows what to do and the best options for getting out. And in case they encounter things, they'll have a second plan A, plan B, and plan C. But
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Brendan, for, I think all of us were probably impressed with the speed with which that fire enveloped the entire dwelling. But a very informative talk, and we do appreciate it. For the audience in general, thank you for attending. And we are going to keep the the link open for a few minutes after the feedback that we got last time, that people might like to chat a bit after the thing. The organizers, that Jan, Eric, and myself, together with Brendan, are going to go into a breakout room simply to have a debriefing, and then we'll come back and see if any of you are still here. So thank you all, and thank you especially to Brendan. And let me tell you, for next week, April the 13th, Jackie Ford will talk on the value of volunteerism and volunteer work. So thank you, Brendan Brown, for a most informative talk.
Thank you for having me. And if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. I'm always available, except for on the weekends. That's my time to spend with the family. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you for that too, Brendan.
thank you.